What's going on, everybody? Anton here, and today I want to talk about frequency separation and how it can be applied to landscape photography. What is frequency separation? Frequency separation is a neat technique that lets you separate colors from the texture, and this allows to apply changes to the color layer independent of the details or textures. This is a very basic explanation of frequency separation. A little more advanced would be that by building frequency separation, you pick part of the texture of your image, and this will be visible in this colors layer. And this is where you can apply your changes independent of the other part. So depending on the blur radius that you select with the frequency separation, you can select different frequencies of your texture, and this allows you to change things. The most popular appliance of the frequency separation technique is to smoothen human skin or to fix different discoloration in the portrait photography. Another purpose could be, for example, fixing wrinkles on the t-shirt or on the shirt when you have a model there and the shirt is a little wrinkled. And in landscape photography, actually, frequency separation lets you fix lens flares. And this is what we're going to do today. Let's see how you can build frequency separation. Let's get rid of this layer. So frequency separation can be easily recorded as an action, and you can download one online. Of course, there are lots of examples and lots of videos on the YouTube how to do this. So first you start with making 2 copies of your layer by selecting Command J on the keyboard on Mac, or Command J or Control J, sorry, on Windows. The top layer we're going to call texture or details, and the bottom layer going to be color or the frequency that you have selected. Now let's deselect the texture, and this layer we're going to just blur. And this blur is basically whatever you want to select as the texture, whatever you consider to be something that you want to change. So if you don't like the color, for example, then the blur radius should be enough to separate these colors from each other. So if you don't like this area of colors, for example, or if you want to smoothen this part of the sand, for example, then the blur radius should be enough to have this sand texture visible, but not without complete any blur. So you're like making a color or just a rough texture selection. So let's start with the radius 5, for example. Then you go to the texture, then you apply this with the linear light mode. Then you go image, apply image. Here you make sure you select your color layer, you invert the channel, you select the blending mode, add, opacity 100 and scale 2. These are the settings for 16-bit image. When you apply this, you don't really see any kind of change. Let's group this to the frequency separation. So if you deselect this layer and select this layer, you don't really see any change. But actually what happened is that now you have 2 layers. In one you have the color, in another one you have the texture. And now you can start making changes. To showcase how frequency separation can be used in landscape photography, I have picked this image. This is a f22 shot image, and usually this is not what you would really use for processing. I think everybody knows this technique when you use a finger to cover the sun, and this lets you expose the main part of the image very sharp and nice with all the details and without really any kind of lens flares. This particular image was a part of the exposure that I was shooting for the sun, but it works very nicely to showcase you how can you use frequency separation to fix lens flares. Let's start with a simple one. If I zoom in, you can see that probably there was like a drop on my lens, and when I was shooting, now I have this dot here, this ugly thing. So let's try to fix it with the frequency separation. In Arc Panel, in the Arc Enhance section, I have already pre-recorded frequency separation action, so you just click on this button, then you select the radius, and in this case let's start with the 4 and 4 because I want this thing to be blurry enough so I could really fix the color, because the main problem of this flare is the discoloration part, because the stone is dark, this part is bright. If I fix the color, then this should fix the problem. So I start with the 4. Now I have 2 layers, color and details. And to see what we are really doing, let's duplicate the color layer and then have it just selected. Let's close the panel. And now we just need to fix this color, and the most simple thing to do this would be the patch tool. It's in the section with the healing brush and the spot healing brush. Select the patch tool, then make a selection of the problem area, drag to whatever you think the color is right. Okay, now it looks nicer. Let's see. So this is before and this is after. We still have a little bit of a problem. So there's still this outline of our problematic area. And this is because in our details, it's still here. So our frequency was not enough to really fix the whole area, but we fixed most of the discoloration. To fix the other part, let's merge this together and build another frequency. So now we actually need to go to a bit smaller radius, because we need this thing, this problem with the outline, to be on the color layer so we could really fix it. And the rest we would consider a texture. So let's go with the 1.5 radius and duplicate the layer, select it, and let's also use the patch tool for this case. Okay, looks like it's gone here. And then if I deselect, this is before and this is after. So if you zoom out, you can't really notice the difference. It works very nicely because the texture was in a completely different layer, and whatever these small patches in the stone were present, they're still present here. We didn't really touch the area on the texture. We just changed the color. So let's merge this in and move on to another example of advanced layers, and this would be these two. So if we build another frequency separation here, and let's go with this radius, for example, 4.5. If we now go to the color, we can really see the color is here. And then if we go to the details, we see that there is almost no color information on this nice layer, on the details layer. So that means that the problem of this part of the image is mostly the color. That means we can still go to the color layer, duplicate it, and let's, for example, go with the content-aware fill this time, just to see if it's going to work nicely. So let's do the selection. Then I'm working on the copy here. And I go to fill and select content-aware. Okay. Okay. Looks a little strange because the selection was very even. So let's get rid of this layer and let's try again, and let's smoothen the selection this time. So we select again with lasso. Then I will go to select, modify, feather, and let's say 10 pixels, for example. So that would make the selection a little smoother. And let's apply our content-aware fill now. Content-aware. Okay, looks a little better. So the part of the problem is still here, because if we switch to the details layer, you will notice there's still a little bit of color, a little bit of this information about the problem that got into the details layer. That means that our frequency wasn't good enough. So let's merge this together and try to build another frequency separation. And this time we go with a smaller radius to really fix the color problem. So we try to come up with the radius that gonna put all the problematic areas that we have into the colors layer, into the blurred colors layer. So let's do this, switch to details. So small patches, small information about the details is still there, but nothing about the color. So let's try to fix it now. It is better to always work on the copy, because if you will do something wrong on the colors layer for whatever reason, you want to go back to the previous state, you will not be able to if you're working directly on the colors layer. So I'm working on the copy again, and let's try with the patch tool again. So maybe like this. Okay, looks a little nicer. We also have a little problem here. And here actually we could, for example, go with the stamp, make it smaller. I have opacity of 100 and flow of the 100. I sample current and below, and that would mean that I would sample on both of these layers. And then let's just stamp away. And to really see what's going on, let's compare these two. So let me go back a couple steps. So if I'm here and I have this color layer, the only problem of this is that the color is wrong. So what I'm trying to do, I'm fixing the color by just sampling the color nearby and fixing the problematic area. And then if I go back, you will not really see the difference. It's completely gone. Let's merge this together and switch to the most advanced part of this tutorial. So this lens flare is really big. There's lots of discoloration here, and it's not that easy to fix. So let's see what we can do with it.